Evening and morning, and at noon will I pray, and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He that delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, for there were many with me. God shall hear and afflict them, and he that abideth of old, Selah, because they have no changes, therefore they fear not God. He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn words. Verse 17 shows Daniel's 3 seasons for prayer. Daniel chapter 6 verse 10. 6 a.m., 12 noon, and 6 p.m. Verse 18 shows David's deliverance through Joab, Abishai, and Jehoiada, mighty men. 2 Samuel chapter 18. But it goes beyond that to the second advent deliverance of Israel by the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. See 2 Kings chapter 2 verses 11 to 12, with Psalm chapter 68 verse 17, Deuteronomy chapter 33 verse 2, and in particular the type given in 2 Kings chapter 6 verse 17. Selah verse 19 gives the key to the context. Because they have no changes, verse 19. This is a great truth, for it points out that where God takes time out to disappoint a man, to frustrate him, to ruin him, or block up his way, the man usually learns to fear God and gets saved. Where God takes off the bridle, see Hosea chapter 4 verse 14, Proverbs chapter 26 verse 3, lets the wild animal run loose and doesn't bother to chasten, whip or rebuke him. See Hebrews chapter 12 verse 4 to 8. He will go straight to the pit every time. If you never learned the fear of the Lord, see Psalm 49 verse 12, you live in vain. Your life is wasted. You come and go in darkness. See Psalm chapter 49 verse 20. Verse 20 is a direct reference to Daniel chapter 9 verse 27 and Daniel chapter 11 verse 28. Verse 21 is a direct reference to the blasphemer. Revelation chapter 13 verses 3 to 6 of Psalm 52. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved. But thou, O God, shalt bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men shall not leave out half their days. But I will trust in thee. Verse 22 is a great prayer promise. Thy burden indicates that your burden will not be identical with mine. Make sure it's a burden and not just an irritation. When you cast something, you give it the old heave-ho. You don't drag it in. These burdens must be cast on Christ himself, who bore them at Calvary. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7. The promise is that he will sustain his saints physically, mentally, and morally, as well as spiritually. They will not be moved. Verse 22. Spurgeon's Treasury of David has some excellent notes and comments on the passage as applied devotionally. Bloody and deceitful men, verse 23, often live well beyond half of their days. Proverbs chapter 10 verse 27 is a good comment on the passage, but Job chapter 36 verse 14 is even better. The trouble with Job chapter 36 verse 14 is that Job is the greatest picture of the tribulation found in the Bible. The tribulation generation is a special generation of special sinners. See Jude 4 and 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 12. With the events that take place in the tribulation, famines, earthquakes, tidal waves, moon turned into blood, sun blotted out, demoniac hordes, capital punishment for not worshipping Satan, starvation and 2 more world wars. Bloody and deceitful men will certainly not live out half their days. None will reach 35 years old if they are 20 when Daniel's 70th week starts. 20 is the age for manhood in Numbers chapter 1 verse 3 and chapter 14 verse 29. If the man is 50, then half of his days would be 10 years. See Psalm chapter 90 verse 10. If he's 60, then half of his days would be 5 years. They won't make it. The passage was literal. The good, godly, dedicated, qualified, recognized fundamentalists couldn't believe it. So they pretended it didn't say what it said. Par again, they messed with the book and God messed with their brains. The original Hebrew text, so-called, gave them nothing but a ball of beeswax. The truth was in the English text, at which they turn up their noses in King James Bible 1611, so-called Authorized Version 1611 also. Amen.